Hi there, Dave here with the third video, and this one's about the B version, the second version, and in here we're going to talk about, well, some refactoring first, and then we're going to talk about our first loop, our first iteration. So let's go ahead and bring up the project, and it's this guy right here. And so what we've first of all done is when we look at the code, we notice that, well, hopefully we notice that the tote count and distance has been moved. It doesn't go up here as a global. It's part of main. It's not a global. It's the only thing that should be global are constants. Variables should not be global. So if we need variables, they go inside main. If you want to have access and everybody wants to get to it, you can pass it around from main. So total count and total distance are there. We are, however, going to leave valid states up here as a global constant. And so main is still just begin, but now middle is going to want to have access to the total count and the total distance arrays because it's going to want to update them. And also end is going to want to have access to the total count and the total distance, as well, of course, as valid states, as valid sites, which is available anywhere that anybody who wants it. So those are going to be needed later on, so we're going to have to pass them around. And so we do. So we pass them to middle and end. So let's go ahead and take a look at what middle does. Well, middle still has our site and our distance. And we're still getting site and distance from get flight data. But we've changed it a little bit in that we're going to always want to have uppercase data. In order for this thing to work, although it shows me entering SOL, I want to have uppercase SOL returned. And so one of the things that this demonstrates is how to turn things into uppercase. And let's take a look real quick at that. Down here in our get flight data, we just put a dot upper. So we're applying this procedure to this object. And that's upper. I think it's confusing. Sometimes you put the upper in the front and then you put the whole thing inside the parentheses, and other times you don't. So it kind of just all depends on when it was created inside of Python. It's kind of a strange thing. But you just kind of have to learn. So that's how you make things upper. And you can Google it. It's right there. So when we go back here, let's see what else we do. Well, after we get our data, what we do is we say, is it valid? That's still just stubbed in. Down here, we have add total. We're going to pass in the total count, and the total distance, and the site and the distance. Yep, all those things are going to be needed when we go to add to the totals. Let's see, what does add to total do now? Let's see. Add to total. It doesn't do anything. But we got the right input to it. But what is important is right here, what we do is we print the value. So we can see that site has been turned to uppercase because we're going to print its value right here. And then this really is the big deal for this particular version, this iteration of the program, which is display arrays. And what this does is it displays let's see what it does. go ahead and run the program here. And so we're going to go ahead and enter SOL and 12. And sure enough, it shows us that SOL, notice it changed to uppercase, and we're getting 12. Yep, that's what we entered. But we also get this. So what we're doing is we're showing the index, the value of the index. So the first member of the valid sites array, the constant, right, was bin, and then CLI, then CLO, then OCE, and then that. What I did was rearrange them so they're in alphabetical sequence for this version. And so notice that they are now in alphabetical sequence. And that's why they showed up in that sequence. So 0. And so these are the totals. So as we're going through and developing, we're going to need this particular tool to see that we've added to the correct pieces of the array. This is a tool that will be very, very helpful to me as I'm trying to debug my code. And so I built this tool right now because I'm going to need it very soon. So this goes through and iterates through each one of the arrays. Here are the three arrays. There's the valid site array, there's the total count array, and there's the total distance array. And that's the index. So we want to see how that magic is performed. And that's done with our first iteration. And it's not an easy one. There is an easier version to understand probably later on, but this is the way that it would be done. And this is the way you really should understand it. So look how simply this is done. We execute the display arrays, passing in those two arrays. We already have access to valid states as soon as we do this. There we have access in line 69. So then we go ahead and print this array values debug only, right? That line there, and then the column heading line next, index site, right? There's that. And now these two lines produce all that magic right there. And so what that says is that I want to get two values back. I want you to go through all of the states and give me two values back. Give me the index value and give me the value at that position. So the first one it's going to give you is 0 and BIN. The next one it's going to give you is 1 and CLI, then 2 and CLO, then 3, etc. And so for each one, each instance of something in valid states, it's going to give us the state value and the index. So we're going to go ahead and print those two, and then we're also going to print the value of the count, the total count at that index position, and the total distance at that index position. So the index position of where we are inside of the valid states array, well, that position is the one that we're using. We're going through them, right? We're looking, we're just going to print its value, the value at that position, and the value of total count at that position, and total distance at that position. I think if you stare at this for a while, it will make some sense. We'll be talking about it in class. Take care.